Okay, my name is Alicia Schneider, and today's date is May 5th, 2021, and the time is 3:40 p.m. The current statistics for the number of confirmed cases and death from COVID-19 in the United States are 32,267,958 confirmed cases and 574,679 deaths. Current statistics for number of confirmed cases and deaths from COVID-19 in Wisconsin are 600,297 confirmed cases and 6,850 deaths. Lastly, I want to state the current statistics on the number of the US population that has been fully vaccinated, and it is 248 million people. And in Wisconsin, 300 36.7% of the population are fully vaccinated. So, first question, make it pretty easy. What is your name, and do you mind sharing demographic information for this study, such as race, ethnicity, age, and gender?
Okay, my name is Catherine Ann Lee. I'm from Eau Claire, not originally though. I identify as female, and I'm 42, and I identify as Caucasian, white. Sorry, and I also have a cold, so I apologize to any future person watching this.
It's
It's
okay.
not COVID. I've been vaccinated anyway.
I feel like you can now do that joke a little bit. Like
Yeah.
last year, probably not, but like this year, like it's not COVID.
Right.
You,
No, that's. Go ahead.
oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. It's like it's like yeah, like it's what's the word? It's funny, but then you're still a little sad because people are still getting COVID.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you live in Eau Claire. Do you mind like saying whereabouts? You know, north
Sure.
side, south side?
I live in Putnam Heights. So it's south side. I mean, south central, I guess. Technically, I live an hour from campus, about 2 hours from downtown. So 2 hours, 2 miles, 1 mile and 2 miles. Sorry, an hour when walking. No.
Have you ever walked to work?
I always walk to work or bike. So it's only a mile. So it's really only no. It's only a mile from Putnam Heights to campus, and I walk or bike when I was going to work on a daily basis. That's how I would get there. I didn't drive, so it's so close, even in the winter.
Oh, I was gonna say, did you drive in winter?
No, it's Wisconsin. It's called good clothing. I like to say I'm from Maine originally, so I mean, I'd like to, not that Maine people are tougher, but we are. So
Why did you move here from Maine?
love question mark? No, my husband's from Wisconsin. And that's a lot. I mean, that's a non-COVID longer story, but we met overseas and came back to his place, as opposed to going to the East Coast. So we're here, been here for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
2008, not quite 15, 13 years. 2008 we came back. So yeah.
So why didn't he go to you? Because to be fair, I've lived in Wisconsin 32 years of my life. That's all my life. And I've always wanted to live in Maine. So who decided the Wisconsin?
Who decided that? This is a much bigger city, and more support. Not more support. So where my parents live. So we came back from, he was in the Peace Corps. I was overseas in the same country doing grad research and stuff. So we didn't have anything. And so we needed to come back somewhere where there was a good support network and a place where there were jobs. But 2008 was a horrible time to come back because there were no jobs. And Maine, although beautiful, absolutely beautiful, lovely place, not a lot of opportunity especially where my mom lives. So it just wasn't, we needed a place to stay. We crashed with his parents, and that's just how it, and it's way cheaper out here. Sorry. The cost of living in New England is I mean, it's not San Francisco, West Coast, but it's it's prohibitive whenever we think, I mean, I think about that, like, how wouldn't it be nice to go back? I'm like, then we look at the prices of how milk, beer, the essentials, and it's too expensive. I'm like, $7 beer? No way. That's ridiculous.
Wisconsin, the essentials, beer.
And milk.
Yes. So so you mentioned that like living was cheaper here. So I'm assuming you enjoy it because you've been here for 15 years. So
Um, I joke with many people, this is not, living in Wisconsin was not on my bucket list. Like I've lived in Germany, I've lived around the world, in a couple places in the world and traveled a lot. And like Wisconsin, I visited once and then I was like, it's okay. It was Madison. I mean, not that Madison's bad either, but it was never a place that I was like, yeah. But um as far as livability and the things, and especially Eau Claire as a city, like I don't know that I'd want to live anywhere else in Wisconsin. Maybe Madison, maybe Milwaukee, but probably not. They're too big for me. And they're too far south. Like the city has a vibrancy, and okay, except for the last year, but before COVID hit, I mean, there was just so much going on, and it was and then it's such a great place to raise a family. Like I have two young kids now, and the things that I love to do, biking, running, and cross country skiing, are like it's it's great. Like whenever I'm out running and the trails around here, and just like, and the community that's around that, and there's sidewalks. Sorry, Maine does not have a lot of sidewalks. There are street signs that let you know where you're that let you know where to go. Like, and so it's just a very different. So I really love it here. I hesitated a little bit, but I do. I like, don't tell my husband I said that. I always joke about it. Like, you dragged me here. Now I'm stuck in Wisconsin. No, it's just a very livable place. And not that there aren't issues. I mean, there's clearly issues related to, I mean, affordable housing here too now. I mean, and I mean, I mean, equity, there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's not perfect, but I just, there's a lot going on, and I appreciate it. And the community, people are friendly. Sometimes that catches me off guard, but it's good.
yeah, because I'm not saying anything bad about Madison or Milwaukee. Been there, not that friendly, but as a fellow Wisconsinite, someone that's lived here, I welcome you. Thank you for calling this home.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
No, when people start complaining about Wisconsin, it's like, you don't know, like, you have it pretty good here. Like, it's not perfect, but it's like, yeah, it's just different. It's very orderly and organized. It's very Germanic. So I lived in Germany for 4 years before I came here, and so it was like, and I love Germany, but anyway, this is like a nicer version of Germany. Everything's in line. You've got Aldi. Aldi is like, so as soon as I saw the Aldi sign, I'm like, all right, I can live here because there's an Aldi, because they're ubiquitous in Germany. That's where it's a German company. So
yeah,
anyway.
because I took German for 4 semesters, because they're brothers, aren't there? So there's like
Yep.
a
And they
yeah,
north and south. There's Aldi
north
and on. Yep. It's okay.
I also have I'm taking a class about Nazi Germany, and now we're getting into the East and West Germany. So I was just thinking East and West. And I was like, it doesn't sound right. And then you're like North South. So I was like, dang it, I was close. Okay. There's 4 cardinal directions.
And we could do a whole other interview about Germany, because there's like the East West, but there's also a very distinct North South in Germany too. So I mean, there's the Protestant and the Catholic, and then anyway, communist, capitalist. Anyway. No, fascinating. Love it.
History is very fascinating, but
yeah, well,
but as you said, this isn't about Germany. So, but when you first learned about COVID-19, what were your thoughts about it? And how have your thoughts changed since then?
That's a great question because um, so we and because I work in the international office, so I think that's an important thing to note is that I work in the Center for International Education on UW Eau Claire campus, and so we were, I want to say, dealing with COVID before it was here in the U.S. because that was in January of right early January of 2020, and we're trying to get cohorts of Chinese students because that's our number one international student population. I'm an immigration advisor, so and I work with orientation and working with getting students here, and so we heard about this and what was going on. I mean, it was in the news here too, um, and um, and so we got everybody in right before President Trump, former President Trump, closed the borders, and like it was like with a day to spare that we got everyone was able to come in, and then but there was all this fear like, okay, what if one of them has it, and then a student ended up with a fever and then had to be quarantined, and like how was that, and like and then there was a test. We had a COVID test in January. It ended up being it failed or it was the wrong. It didn't. They hadn't perfected it yet, clearly. So this poor one of the students didn't end up having COVID, but still, like there was all this panic and fear about COVID on the one end, but then the information that I feel like we were getting, we as a I don't know if I want to say as a country, but in the office, like this isn't any worse than the flu. And maybe, and so there's all this panic about COVID, coronavirus. It wasn't even COVID at that time. It was still just called coronavirus. And so there's all the corona jokes about the coronavirus. And and so there was just this like, oh, it's not that bad. And I believe that too. It's like it's the seasonal flu is worse. And I remember like we were trying to send out communications like to students, like they should be more concerned about coming here and getting influenza because how many Americans in the US, I mean, they die of influenza. It's staggering. I mean, and we don't care enough about that. I'd like to, I mean, we don't wear, I mean, because mask wearing, heavens no, why would we do that? I mean, why would we help protect our fellow citizens who might be vulnerable? Sorry, snark. Hey, it's about me. That's what I think. So um anyway, so we were dealing with this in January and it truly was like and I remember talking to my mom and she was freaking out about it. It's like, I'm not going to get on an airplane anytime soon. I was like, Mom, it's just like the flu. I even told her that. And now I feel like an idiot, but we didn't know a lot about it. I mean, there wasn't, and I don't know how free flowing the information was coming from China or from any country. I don't know how, I mean, it's not one country doing one thing. Everyone's, I mean, it's hard. So people just didn't know. And then once people started dying so much in the US, it was just like, oh, but then, and still people don't believe it. I just don't understand. But anyway, so yeah, so definitely things, perceptions changed and it took a little bit, but I just remember slowly, like we'd have students, and I also work with our scholars who are on campus too, and they're just like more and more concerned, particularly the scholars from China who are here, and they're like, what's going on? What are the safety practices? No one wears a mask, no one's doing this, people aren't taking this seriously. I have a colleague and she's originally from China. She's like, nobody's taking this seriously. Like, and I'm like, but it's just the flu. And so there's the people we're trying we're trying really hard to give us warnings that this is much more serious. And I think it didn't really hit. I mean, all the stuff in New York City and Seattle area, like that was just like, I mean, but it was far away. Like that's far away. That's not Wisconsin's not going to come to Wisconsin. And like people are saying, oh, it's going to come here. It's like, no, it's not. I think we were I mean, I felt like I was just naive. Like it's not going to come here. We're not going to go all online for classes. Like it's just going to go away. And whether that was in part because of the public rhetoric that was given publicly from the government at the time, because that was an official statement by the president at the time, it's just going to disappear. So yeah, I guess it was, and it didn't, I remember it was becoming more apparent it was going to come and we were going to get a case in in Wisconsin and get it. Well, I just remember watching. I was like, there's now it's in it's in Illinois, now it's in Minnesota, now it's in Milwaukee. Like, and then it's just like creeping. It's like this like the murderer that keeps coming closer and closer. And I was just, there was one day I was petrified. Like we had students coming in because they knew they were trying to leave because they knew that we were going to be going online eventually. And so we have to sign documents and do things. So this was in March, early March. And I remember it's like, oh my gosh, everyone's just coming in the office. There's all these people in the office. And I had these visions because I had a 1-year-old son, and I still have my son, but anyway, he's one at the time. And I just had this vision of mini coffins and my son in the mini coffin. And I'm like, I have to get out of here. Like I was just bawling, and I had went for a run, and I'm like, I can't work here anymore. I mean, I can't physically be here. There's just too much. And it was just the anxiety, the not knowing. Like that was what was like all last spring was just like nobody knew. And then there was like the over. And so if you don't know, some people, I mean, and I reacted to being like way over cautious about stuff, and which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing at all, but there was just so much anxiety and oh yeah, it was rough. March, April, and then just being at home and just waiting and just not knowing when's it going to come and how's it going to affect the kids, and like, do I have a condition that's going to make it worse? And like, yeah, that was, yeah. But now, I mean, now that we know so much more, it's like, I just think of where I was a year from now. And it's like, it's not fabulous now, but it's like, it's so much. I mean, there's some hope, there's some, and you just, but it's still terrible. I mean, you look at India, it's still absolutely horrible. It's horrible. So anyway, that's I kind of went over on what I was supposed to talk about. But
You are totally good. I love to see this, like we discussed before I hit record that I was afraid that you weren't going to talk, but you're great. You're totally, you're getting it. So have you been back to the university like and done anything? Okay.
Oh yeah, I was into this morning. So I don't know when I went back in, because one of the issues is that I have to issue documents. So I do with immigration documents, and there's some students who are still on campus, and I have to go. I mean, I print them off here, and then I bike or run down to the office to drop them off, or I'll go in for a little bit. I mean, but I'll just drop stuff off. I don't like go into the office. Our office is still open. We still have since, I don't know, the director, Colleen, never left. She's been there through and through. But I get it. Some people, I mean, just they work better in an office setting and not from home. And that's fine. And then we can stay open, and she can answer any questions. But she was saying there was last summer, there was nobody there. So, but yeah, I'd usually go in once a week to drop off stuff, or today I actually I decided to have an in-person masked in a large room meeting with a colleague. We're trying to just work on some stuff, and it was just going to be easier doing it in person than trying to share screens and do all that stuff. And that was good. So I'm kind, and it also helps to like slowly like transition. We're going to have to go back. I mean, we're student facing, and we have students. I mean, we like to be available so that depending on how students want to interact, they want their questions answered. Some are really in person, and a lot of international students are like that. Some are like email or a phone call or a Zoom is fine, but we want to be there for them, for those who really want an in-person or drop in and have a quick question. So we're going to go back. So like going in, I'm planning to go in a little bit more, like clean out my office, because it's true, like my shoes are still in there, like I go back in there, and like, and the other thing, so, and I kept this up just because it was a happy, like my office, they kind of decorated my office when I came back from maternity leave, and a 1-year-old, all that stuff is still up, and I'm like, he's 2, like, okay, this has got to go down, like this is just, it was truly like we got the order from Governor Evers, like, okay, you're going home now, and we just left like this. And I think I went a day earlier. It's like, I can't do this anymore, like I'm just gonna work from home, because I can't, I just, from a mental standpoint, too much anxiety. but I've been in there. It's like, no, this needs to go down. He's not, no, no. But it was weird. It's like, I think there's an article in the New York Times about that too. Like when you go back to your office space and it's clear that you had just left, like in a rush, like here comes the, I don't know, whatever. So, but it's definitely been that feeling. And I think it's good to slowly like transition back. I mean, I'm okay with kind of jumping all in, but why? Like I'm just gonna like go in for a little bit longer and maybe have a couple meetings with colleagues, like in-person meetings, and just to get used to that. So
Um, let's keep going with that because it seems like it's really interesting. So like when you first went back to your office and you saw all like the decorations and you haven't been there for, did like it make you, I don't know if anxious is the right like word, but like did it like make you go back to like that moment where you were anxious? I need to leave. My family is important, the health, and it makes you think about like the COVID like scare type of thing or
not really. It was more like someone needs to clean this up. I'm very practical. Sorry. I guess. um, yeah, well, in a way, like the shoes are like, oh wow. It's more kind of an astonishment. And the other thing is like, I haven't thought about this for a year. And now I see, I was like, oh yeah, okay. Well, someone's got to clean this up. Like the shoes, I'm like, oh, I haven't even looked for these shoes because I haven't had to, they're like my work shoes. And like they're super nice, but it's like they're like pairs of heels. Like I haven't needed to wear needed. Nobody needs to wear heels, but I haven't worn heels and they or had like going out work shoes on. I mean, I'm wearing my running shoes all the time, so I can go on a run whenever I want to. So to see that, it's just like, oh, well, that's where they are. If I ever need them again, I'll probably just give them to Goodwill because. So, yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of this needs to be cleaned up, and to be fair, I'm kind of a forward thinker. I don't try to dwell too much in the past. I'm trying to be better at that because it's good to remember the past and to like learn from it. But I'm like, okay, all right, that's done. We've gone through that. Let's move forward. But I mean, some good reflection time is valuable too. So
I understand. I'm trying to be one of those like be in the moment person and take one thing at a time and then look to the future. Don't look at the past, unless you need to. Obviously, I want to be a historian, so I have to,
you're a past person.
yes, past person. So how do you think your job will be next semester? Do you think it's going to be more in person or how do you think it's going to be for you?
Well, there's what I think it will be, and there's what I hope it will be. They're two very different things. I think, I think we're going to be. I'm planning on, and mentally planning. I'm not at first. I'm planning on being there in person, whether that's full time, 5 days a week, or there's talk of having some kind of flexibility because at first it was an adjustment to be working from my basement. And it was really hard when the kids were home because that's when the height of the anxiety, like we kept them home. I gotta grab a tissue. Sorry, person watching this in the future. um and so we had everybody home, my husband home, me home. I have a 6-year-old daughter too, so we were all home, and it was just like it was crazy. My husband's making PPE with 3D printers going on. Like he works for the Pablo, so he was doing all this stuff, which was great, but and we just didn't know, and so we like pulled everyone out of society and we kind of huddled in here, and then we drove ourselves crazy and like, okay, daycare is going to be fine, and so we let them go. And so it's been actually good. I mean, I couldn't work from home with my kids here, and I feel for any parent who's had to do that, and oh yeah, so hard. Because we've had to do, I mean, they've had quarantines and they have all this stuff, so we've had to deal with that as it came up. So we have had a lot more disruptions, but I also look at them as like, this is great. Like I'm actually kind of having a second, third maternity leave with my youngest. Like thinking of how much time I spent with my youngest at his age is significantly more than what I had with my oldest, because she just went right to daycare and did all, I mean, it is what it is. But and it's been good with her too. Like this whole time we've spent more time with family. A double-edged sword. But sorry, I sidetracked. The question, yes, we will be going back to in person. I'd like some flexibility. I'd like to be able to, because my daughter will be in elementary school, and so the elementary school schedule does not match the regular working day schedule, and which is just it's just a systemic problem in our society. And what my fear is that nobody's going to learn from this, and like that we're just going to go back full speed ahead. We got to get the economy going, get everybody working again, and we're just going to, like, this was a blip and it's never going to happen again. And like that stress of like, okay, I got to be at work at 8:00. I got to get home. I got to get this. I got to do this. All this, like, and I don't have that now. Like, I get to my desk downstairs when I get to my desk, and I can't cut off my kids if they're in the house and they haven't left yet for whatever. Like, so I hope there'll still be grace given to parents. And I think, and I don't know that that's going to happen, because it's been so apparent, not that I didn't know this already, that the US is not family friendly at all. And this shed a light on that, but I don't have hope that corporate business work culture is going to change to accommodate that, because they don't care, because it's not run by people with families. It's still run by old white men who never had to deal with raising kids. Being honest.
I agree with you. Not over here being like, oh my gosh, she's
no, I know.
I totally agree with you.
So, and that's because I also feel like the US as a country and as a culture is not good at remembering. And I'm a product of that. That's why I say, like, I'm like, all right, move forward. Am I going to learn anything from this? So I'm pointing fingers at society, but I'm part of that. Like, am I going to it's been great not having to rush to activities or to, like, there's just been more, it's been stressful. Like, we're never bored. So the people who were bored during COVID, I'm like, who are you? Who are you? Because I am not bored. I will give you my children and you cannot be bored for it. No, it's just really funny. Like what you hear, like the New York Times, because it's all like city and no kid culture. I'm like, and like the boredom of and languishing during COVID, like languishing, like, no, not languishing. Like, we can't give our kids to grandma because she's not vaccinated yet. We want to get rid of them for like 2 hours, please. Anyway, so it's just, so am I going to remember? I'm trying, like, and it really started in January, because I was still like, with COVID and the election and everything was just like so much anxiety. I'm like, I'm angry, I'm frustrated all the time. I started doing yoga. I'm like, normally I'm like, no, I'm just going to run and that's it. I'm like, no, I need something that's a little bit more for my mental health. And it's just been wonderful. And it's just much more the moment. That's all you have. You have the moment, and you had these wonderful children for a reason. They're wonderful children. So enjoy it, even though it's frustrating sometimes. So it's just, I mean, he's 2, she's 6. She tries to run the house. Like, there's no, like I said, it's never boring and it's never quiet until they go to bed. So
I understand. My boyfriend has a 5-year-old, so I totally understand. I get it. So your son is 2 and he was 1 when this all started. So I'm assuming your daughter was about 5.
Yeah,
like when
exactly. She just turned 5.
Okay, perfect. How did you explain it to her? Like, how did you explain? Because that's very interesting to me. Like, how did you explain COVID to a 5-year-old?
We called it the virus, and she still calls it the virus. Like, there's this virus going on and it's making people really, really sick. And so we can't, and we just don't know enough about it. And so we have to be really careful. And so we can't go, it was hard. Like, no, I'm sorry, we can't go see grandma, because the hard part, and this is where a lot of the anxiety was that even within our own family and within social circles, everybody had different levels of comfort, and navigating that was so stressful because I've got a mother-in-law who's like, this whole thing is stupid. And then other people who just like, well, let's go hang out outside and around a bonfire. And I'm like, at the time I was like, no, not yet. No, like, no, 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 no. Like, I'm not comfortable just like hanging out. Like, we're not supposed to be hanging out. We just don't know. I mean, now I'm okay. I mean, we're vaccinated, everyone's vaccinated, and then probably an outdoor thing is not a big deal. Like, but that was really hard. And so trying to explain, like, no, you can't go roller skating with grandma, call her grandma, long story, but whatever. We can't go roller skating with grandma because of the virus. And there's also this level of trust that you have with people. Like, they say they're going to do something, and like, are they really going to do it? Like, it just, relinquishing that control over your immediate family was like really hard for me. And I probably took it to an extreme, and I'm sure I was cursed behind my back, but I don't care. I don't care. Like, this is because we don't know. My, like, I have a blood condition that I take medicine for. And so I'm on blood thinners. But when I'm reading about like vascular issues are one of the big side effects or big complications from COVID, I was terrified because like probably my kids have it. It's a genetic condition, and probably one of my kids has it, if not both of them. And like, no idea. Like, I mean, and so there's just terror. Like, I'm not gonna take that risk. So there was just so much anxiety, and it's a lot. And just easing into like, okay, going back to like semi-normal relations and like but it's better now. And again, yoga helps. So, but that was so hard because people just wanted to get together and like, how about doing that? Like, no, we're not comfortable with that. And like, you stop pressuring. I just felt so much pressure from people to do things. And like, no, we're in a pandemic. We're not supposed to do things. So, but anyway, it's better. I don't think relationships were damaged irreparably, but it's pretty, yeah. Late summer and fall were kind of rough. Excuse me.
So she's starting kindergarten next year. Okay, perfect.
No, this year. She's in kindergarten now.
Year. I am so sorry.
No, it's okay. That's fine.
So how has that been with her? Like, isn't it like when you're over 5, you have to wear a mask?
Yes. She's a serious offender. No. No. And I don't think she means to. She's 5. No, she loves school. We did the hybrid, and we did that from the get-go. We trust in the science. Like, okay, the cohorts are super small. She had 8 people in the fall, I mean, for most of the year, and like did the 2 days a week, and it was great. And then they have to wear, and she goes to daycare too, they have to wear masks there too when they're inside. And it's just she knows she has to do it. The other day she was just wearing one for funsies. I mean, she tends to like put it down under her nose, and then she chews on it, but she's 6. So it's not but I think, and this was something I just remember when everyone was all up in arms when school started, like, oh my gosh, how the kids gonna wear masks, and all the kids. And it's not the kids. You can tell kids to wear what they want. You just like threaten them with suspension, and they're way better rule followers than the adults. And that's where, and just that fear of like the kids getting, and the kids are gonna transmit it, and the kids are gonna, and it's you baby boomer going to a bar, to a Packer game, and refusing to wear a mask. I said it. But that's what it was, and that's what it is. Because it's not the kids. Like, everyone's afraid, oh, the kids are gonna, because yes, generally you get your cold from the kids. Kids are little germ machines, but this isn't a disease that it is one of those. Like, but no one can like move beyond that. Kids aren't major carriers for COVID. So anyway.
So at her school, like, I'm assuming she probably maybe has a desk. Are there like any barriers? Like, how is school situated for her? Or do you not know this?
That's a great question. I'm not sure. So I think yeah. I don't, that was, I have to say the first day, slight aside, but the first day of kindergarten was slightly terrifying because I mean, we live really close to the schools and it's like, and there's just like the, oh my gosh, my baby's growing up, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not super emotional about stuff. Like I wasn't bawling, but I'm just like, I got a little, like I saw it, like we couldn't go in. We'd never seen the inside of the building. Like we just didn't really know. And I'm sure it's fine. Like, but it's just this weird, like, and I just remember everyone's kind of lined out, everyone's kind of outside, socially distant, everyone's got their mask on. And then the bell rings, and then she has to go into the specific door, and then she just gets, and she has no fear. My daughter has no fear. She's the most amazing person. I She's the most frustrating person, but the most amazing person is my daughter. And she has no fear. And she's just like, bye, mom. And she just walks right in. And she says, no fear. And she just chats up the teacher at the door. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. Like, but I'm like, COVID, but it's fine. Like just like questioning the decision to even do that. And it was fun. Like, I mean, and I am tearing up a little bit, so I'm a little emotional. But yeah, it's just that was really, and I didn't think I'd get emotional. And then there's like, but she loved it. She loved school. And I think with that, and initially before they went back to the everyone together, what they're doing now, they had one person at a desk. Everything was social distance. I don't think there were barriers. I don't think so. She didn't mention that, but they all had to wear masks. And then I mean, they're stuck in the room the whole time. And then they can't, when they get lunch delivered to their room and stuff. So, and then now I think she's got like a table desk, like a bigger desk, and she's got a person next to her, another friend. So yeah, it was, but the communication on all ends, like with the school district, was great. They like announced like, yeah, there was a case of COVID, and families have been notified of need to quarantine or whatever. And same with the daycare, like the communication was great. I mean, it was frustrating when you found out it was your kid that was probably exposed, but I mean, at least you knew. And yeah, we had two, like, and it was both at the daycare, but it wasn't from other kids, it was from staff. Always from staff. It was never from another kid. And I know that may be different in other situations, but I mean, but there was never kid to kid transmission but it was adults who had gotten it outside of work at the bar at the Packer game. Anyway, sorry. I'm sorry. Hey, it's my story. That's how I feel. And not everybody was like, I mean, there's just such a dividing line in our society of like, no, we're gonna follow the rules, and like, screw the rules, I'm gonna do whatever I want. Don't tell me what to do. Like, anyway.
I can probably understand that because like kids have such a low rate of getting the virus and everything like that. So it's hard to trust other people with your children, and you're just like, I'm hoping you're making the right decision, everything. Do you think your daughter's missing out on essential things because of COVID, like the experience in school, type of thing? Or do you think it's going to be more in the future that something might change in schooling?
I don't think so. I mean, I think, well, she doesn't know she's in kindergarten, so she's never done it before. She has no basis of reference. So I think kids who were used to going the 5 days a week, like I feel for high school students, like and when you're at the height of like, that's when you're trying to get away from mom and dad, and your peer group is your main influencer, not your parents anymore. So she's still, I mean, she loves school. I mean, that's her, and she's thriving with school. Like, she's learning to read, she can do her math, like, so. And I think that's kudos to how the Eau Claire School Department, and not everyone will agree with me, but I think they've done a good job of, like, even with the online stuff, like she was able to learn. But she comes from a privileged family, and we have internet, we have electric, we have these things, and we're there to support her, even though we're both working at the same time. We have the flexibility in our jobs to be sure that she's doing what she needs to. She's also not dumb. Sorry, not that kids are dumb. She also excels at that type of learning. I mean, everyone's got different type of learning, but she just sucks that up. I mean, so I don't think what she's missing, and she's been asking about, like, we used to do swimming lessons, and other, we did gymnastics and dance and that kind of stuff, which we haven't done. She'd asked about that, just kind of been asking periodically, nothing major. But I don't think she's missing out. What was great this winter, because of winter, like, and we loosened up with the whole, because outdoor stuff, like the transmission outdoors is like minuscule, unless you're like huddled around a bonfire, like talking really close to the person next, right? You know, like it's, so like odds are small. So we did, like, she started ski jumping, and like regularly. She'd done it once or twice last year, but then she started doing that regularly. And then they had cross country ski lessons out at Tower Ridge, once a week all through January and February. And they had COVID, like they had to wear masks while they were out there, and they, all this stuff. And so she was still doing things. So I don't feel like she was missing out. She's missing out. What I do feel frustrated about, and I don't know that there's any way around it, it's just come sooner than I wanted to deal with as a parent, is the whole screen thing and the whole iPad. I like, and I, you know, and that's what it is. And but we do other things too. So it's not like that's all, but that was kind of like, one day we're looking, like, we have 3 devices for our child. Like, this is so wrong. I mean, so I know, but I don't know, some things that she's learned a lot from, some are useless, but I don't know. I mean, from a developmental standpoint, she's still doing fine. And I'm not worried about the future for her at all. At least in that sense. At this point. I mean, it'll change. Ask me when she's 13. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so we'll come back and do this COVID oral history interview again, when she's 13, to think, how are you feeling now?
I'm sure she'll remember stuff. She has an amazing memory. And so she'll probably bring stuff up and just be like, remember when? I'm like, oh.
Do you think that she'll read about this, like, do you think history classes will like do this, study it, talk about it?
I hope so. But so, and this has just been my experience, and I'm hoping that the teaching history in elementary, middle school, and high school has evolved since when I was in school. We never got beyond World War II. Like, sorry, when we're talking about US history, like, we never made it past that. And so, and we always started with the Romans. Like, it was just this very, I mean, so so yeah, so I hope that there's that it's taught very differently, and that this is, and I don't know if it comes up in history class, or if it comes up, I don't know where it comes up, or if it's like we never learned about the Vietnam War. Like, we never learned, I mean, it's just like, and what we did was all glossed over. Maybe that's just an indication of what the learning standards are for Maine. I don't know. But yeah, I hope so. And I hope when she has grandchildren, if she does, because she's told me, no, I'm not gonna have kids. I'm like, good, smart. No. That she's interviewed for what was it like with COVID? What was it like? And I hope that happens. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that's approached in recent. Is there going to be like, because we have, like, with 9/11, there's like the first few years after, you have this big emphasis on these memorials and these grandiose things, but this is also like, COVID's going to be with us for a long time. And so is there going to be those markations where we remember? And like Pearl Harbor Day, like I remember not knowing what Pearl Harbor Day was. It's the day after my birthday. I'm like, what's this Pearl Harbor Day? And like, but even that, like it's not that far removed from me. I mean, like, and so it doesn't take long, like as I mentioned before, for the US to conveniently forget. Sorry, I'm going to be honest. I think it's a convenient forgetting of what happened. And it gets airbrushed over. So that's another reason this is important to do this project. So thank you for providing this, because I don't know that yeah, I don't know that it's gonna, like I said, I don't know we're gonna learn from anything. And I don't know how it's gonna be taught after it. There's like more of this and more of that, but then you reach a point where you're like, oh yeah, even sadly 9/11, which wasn't that long ago, isn't, especially if you aren't in New York City, or like, to be fair, I wasn't in the country at the time, so I have a very different relationship with it. So I should just probably, but it just seems like it's faded for some, not for others, but it's just, history is fascinating and how we document and remember significant events and how that changes over time. But gosh darn it, July 4th, we sure have those fireworks and brats. It's bigger every year. This is great. I'm not filtered. It's awesome. I love
No,
it.
you're fine. I love it. Like, I feel people are gonna watch this, be like, wow, she really let it all hang out. And I'm like, great. I love it. No, but I agree with you. I hope they do mention something about it. Like it's remembered. It's always going to hopefully be remembered, because I know when they brought up the, like in school, about the 1918 flu pandemic, I was like, what?
Right?
That was a thing? You know, like we're forgetting, you know, we're choosing what to forget, type of thing.
Mhm.
If Germany cannot forget the Holocaust and have memorials,
Mhm.
they talk about it, it's not shied away, you
Mhm.
know, as I'm sure you well know, it just feels like sometimes the United States puts things under the rug, you know,
Oh,
sweeps it under the rug. And it's do you think that's kind of what's being going on? Because I know a lot of my friends are like, oh, I'm not getting the vaccine. It's it's too brand new. Like, what happens if I die? I'm like, you could die from the flu tomorrow,
right.
or get hit by a bus, you know, Mean Girls, Regina style, you know, like woo, you know, type of
Yeah.
thing. But how do you feel about the vaccine?
I got it. Initially, I was, I mean, not, I was a little wary. It was really fast. And I was like, is this even going to work? And then what are the side effects going to be? And again, like I have a blood condition. I'm like, what's gonna, but then it just kind of came up, or like, we got, that's the cost we have to pay right now for this pandemic. Like there's so many people have died. So yeah, there's a risk, and assessing the true risk. Like, yes, it's going to be, if I die of getting the, I mean, I clearly didn't die of getting the vaccine. It's been, but like driving in my, we let our kids go over to friends' houses with pools. Like that's a different, like there's great, Freakonomics is a fabulous book that goes about like more rational thinking of like risk and how, or like odds of things happening and how irrational we are as humans. Like flying is way less risky than driving a car, but somehow we just have this thing with flying, or some people do, or just, so we're, and what we're able to deal with. And I think because something's new, we're like, okay, that's risky. But if we look at the things that we've just gotten, our body, our minds have just numbed to, like we just accept it, we're fine with. But it's just taking that step back and like looking at the data, science, like what are the odds, and then just thinking at it from a public health perspective. It's like, yeah, so many people have sacrificed their lives. The least I can do is get a vaccine and like to try to stop all the mutations or slow them down. And there's just so much. I just, and I get, I mean, but they're always going to be tweaking it too. Like it's not, I mean, yeah, I don't know. It goes back to just trusting the science and then looking at trying to shut off the irrational mind and to think rationally about it, which is really hard when the anxiety is so high and people are just scared. But then the not vaccinating, just I don't know. I don't have a lot of, I get it if there's an true underlying medical condition, but just to not do it, it's frustrating because it could really, but then I also think, sorry, more of my thoughts, is the people, and this isn't everybody, I'm being judgy and I'm making assumptions, but I am. I feel like the people who haven't let COVID affect their lives, who have gone on, just done for the most part what they normally do anyway, no masks, social gatherings, done ever they just are the ones who aren't going to get vaccinated. And because it hasn't, they don't see the need to because the COVID hasn't changed their lives. But for those of us, I'm putting an us and them, sorry. But I mean, it's really affected our lives and we want to do something proactive to be able to do the things that we want to do again. But there's some like big, like big concerts. My husband works for the Pablo. So like having like those types of shows, like no one's going to have any shows until more people are vaccinated and it's like lower rates of infection and stuff like that. But I don't know. They don't care. I don't know, or they don't go to concert. They don't. I mean, but sure. Well, there's some performers that won't care either, and they'll do. I mean, so it's just frustrating that there's not more of a collective togetherness. But what did I expect from this country at this time? Like, it's just not. It's not. There's no. And was there ever? Like, I think there's just always that tension. Public good. I mean, public versus private. And there's me, or us. And yeah, it's just been a lot made even more clear this past year.
Well, gonna come to a close, but one last thing I want from you is
Sure.
A lot of people are gonna watch this, this is gonna be on a website, everybody. So well, this, we discussed all about this and you agreed to the recording and everything like that. I want you to give me a sale pitch. Everybody out there, why should they get the vaccine and why is this important?
Oh, a sales pitch. You should get the vaccine because it saves lives, because it will decrease the spread and people, and I'm really worried of the variants. Like you need if more people keep getting it, people think, oh, I don't need to worry about it because it won't make me that sick anyway, but it'll mutate inside you even if you don't get super sick. And then there's going to be new variants. And then we have to, it's going to spiral, I think. Not spiral too bad, but it's not going to be controlled. I don't know if it's ever going to be controlled, but yeah. And then things can go back to sort of normal. I mean, I don't know that we're ever going to go back to normal, but yeah, I think think of the other people, like think of somebody else besides yourself. And the science says it's not risky. It's not. I mean, the blood clots, yeah, but I've had blood clots. But I don't know. Sorry, that wasn't a great sales pitch, but
it's okay. I love it. I feel like with you being stuffy because you're sick, you kind of almost seem like not desperate, but you're like, guys, please do it.
Just do it. Do it for humanity, man.
Let's do it for me. I felt it. So someone's gonna watch maybe just a blip of that. They're like, oh my God, this woman is really feeling it. I should get a vaccine, type of thing. You are gonna be like a meme maybe one day,
Oh
like,
God, no. The stuffy woman.
but how I've explained it to people about vaccine is every time you get a medication, there's a side effects. Every
Mhm.
medicine that I have, worst side effects, death. My birth control, my other medications, worst
Yeah.
side effect, death. So it's
Right.
like
Well,
that's
every
why.
single waiver for a race I've done, risk of skiing is a it's a dangerous sport. You could die. I'm like, okay, so, sure. I mean, what? And every year someone collapses at the Berkey. I don't know if that they die, but so it's like, I mean, and life has risks. I mean, everything has a risk. There's nothing risk-free. Nothing. I mean, you're gonna so and just trying to play to that like rational thought, but it's hard. It's hard to move people because I think it's been so politicized that people are just adamant not to do it just out of principle because no. Yeah.
But I thank you so much for all your great insight. I love that you didn't hold back, you gave your perspective because that's what this is about. It's about you and understanding your life with COVID, that makes it sound like you have COVID. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But what life was like, your family, your work life, and I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing and, being open, honest, and that's what I love. Because I'm the same way. So I love when someone doesn't hold back because it's just like you're holding back. I know it is. But thank you so much.
Absolutely. It was fun. Got a lot off my chest. No, I've told other people this too. People who know me know that's what I'd say. No secrets.
Perfect.